This is veteran, and we have
James Mayfield, the greatest Mayfield.
and our special guest.
Former Fifth Ward City Councilman Wantwaz Davis.
And this episode is continuation of what the commemoration of the 10-year water crisis, and former city council
Fifth Ward City Councilman
of Fifth Ward, Wantwaz Davis, is going to be speaking his truth on all the things that happened during his last 10 years of this situation. So welcome to the show, Councilman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayfield and Mr. Gundry. Thank you very much for inviting me. I just left the gym though, but hey, you know, it ain't about what I look, it's about what I say.
Yeah, it's about what you say.
It's about what I say.
Again, we happy to have you down here. So we want to start from the beginning. You from Flint?
Yes, sir. I'm from Flint, Michigan, born in Hurley Hospital.
Okay then. And did you come from a nuclear family?
I came from a middle class family. I was raised by my grandparents. You know,
Okay.
my mother had me at the age of 15, so she wasn't really capable of providing and doing the things that a mother really supposed to do. But my grandparents took the initiative, and they raised me well. My grandmother worked in Flint Orthopedic Hospital, and my grandfather, which I call Daddy, he worked in General Motors, truck and bus.
Okay then. So what schools did you attend?
I only made it to the 7th grade. Then I went to Dort Elementary School in the 5th Ward. I went to Daly Elementary in Beecher. My mother and I moved out there for 2 years. Then I went to Dolan Junior High School. Well, I guess it was the 5th grade, so I can't call it a junior high school because you go from Daly to Dolan. That's from the 5th on up to the 7th to 8th. And then I came back and went back to Dort School, and then I went to Whittier, and then I went to Longfellow. Unfortunately, I never taught myself how to read.
Okay.
So I flunked a lot in
Okay.
school.
Okay.
You know, I failed a lot, unfortunately, but, you know, yeah, I failed a lot in school, you know. And then I went to an alternative school, which was called the Kennedy Center. But, you know, back in my day, the Kennedy Center was made for people that just ran the streets, went through the front, and went out the back. And I
Right.
sold a lot of drugs, you know. That was my means and my way of acquiring the things that I wanted. My grandparents gave me everything I needed, but, you know, there were some things that I wanted. And so I was able to sell drugs in the street to obtain the things that I wanted, which was an irrational initiative, but that's what I did. My grandmother tried to get me to refrain, but, you know, there was so much money in Flint. A lot of people in those days were running the streets selling drugs. And so that's what I decided to do. And that took over me desiring to want to go to school and learning how to read. I just desired to obtain the things that I wanted. And so I sold drugs.
Okay then. So we all fail, you know what I'm saying? And that's
Yes.
and that's what helped us be the men that we are today and build character. It builds a lot of character. The more you
Yes.
fail, the more character that you get. So
Absolutely.
so where we want to go now, so since you only got a 7th grade education, have you ever been to prison?
I did go to prison. I went to prison. I murdered a man for raping my mother
Wow.
when I was 17 years old. Prior to that, I had no convictions. I have never even been to jail. So, yeah, I murdered a man. 3 men raped my mother, and I took the initiative. And my heated emotions, I began to think irrational. After my grandmother told me to not do it, I still took the initiative to do it. And there was a young man that went and told on the guy and myself. The guy didn't do it. And so I took the initiative to turn myself in to clear him. And I turned myself in to make sure that the person that was with me wouldn't be accused nor be liable for what I did. And I pleaded guilty. In 90 days, I was doing 22 to 50. And
Wow.
So I turned myself in to make sure that he wouldn't be a part of what I did.
So how long did you do? You said you did.
I did 20 years. I
So-
went in when I was 17. I got out when I was 37.
So what are some of the positive things that you did in prison to make you become the man you are today?
Well, I met an older guy by the name of Raphael Pitts. He used to write letters for me. I would sit on the floor. Well, let me start from the beginning. I met Raphael through a guy named Joe Brown.
Okay.
Raphael and Joe Brown and I was walking through the track, and I would listen to Raphael on how articulate he was. And my body, or my mind, was so in tune with his intelligence that Joe told me after we departed from Raphael, he said, Wani, a lot of people think that he is crazy, but Wani, he's remarkable, and he's extremely intelligent, and you should get to know him. And so I would walk the track with Raphael, and he would expound on a lot of things when it came to history and manlyhood, and, you know, just try to educate me in ways that he wasn't able to educate his own children, because he went to prison early in age and he had children that he wasn't able to raise. And so they rolled Raphael out, and when they rolled Raphael out, I end up being transferred, and I end up meeting him again. And I didn't know how to really write letters or express myself in letters. And I would sit on the floor, he would sit at the table, and I would express my feelings, and he would write letters in the way that he felt that I was expressing myself. And so one day he told me, he said, Wantwaz, in order to succeed in life, it requires sacrifice. Okay. And I said, what do you mean by that? He said, in order to be successful, it requires for you to be sacrificial. We have yard 3 times out of a day. And I know you like to go to the yard. He said, so you should sacrifice one of your yards and learn how to read. He said, because I can no longer be an impediment in your life when I know better, and I know you can do better. So I would no longer be able to write letters for you, but I want to teach you how to read. You should learn how to master the English language. But first, you have to make a sacrifice. And I say, what sacrifice? You need to miss one of your yards and let me go to the yard. And just look over the words. And so they opened the door. And I said, I'm going to start sacrificing right now. He threw a big book and he hit my desk, and it was heavy. And I said, what is that? He said, it's a dictionary. Master the English language. And if you start now, when you go home, you can be remarkable. But I can't be an impediment in your life and continue to write letters for you that by the time you go home, you won't know nothing.
Wow, that's incredible. So,
and so I would go over the words, peruse over the dictionary. I didn't know what I was perusing, but I would go through it. And when he get off the yard, he would teach me my vowels, adjectives, adverbs, nouns, you know, and we would start from there. And so I went on this big excursion, which is a journey, and I started teaching myself how to read.
Well, that's great. That's very inspirational. So during this ordeal, as you begin to read and as you begin to, you know, learn and figure out yourself and who you were, because you went in young, what type of aspirations and dreams, because you know you had an out date, you was coming home, what were some? You lived out anything that you ever dreamed about?
Yes, most definitely. God is magnificent. He's allowed me to do the things that I've always desired to do, and I'm still doing it. Life is not fulfilled yet. My goals are not fulfilled yet. I only got an inkling of it, but I still got more that I need to fulfill. And so my aspirations was to educate myself and to come home and be remarkable, help people, assist people. I used to do it when I was in prison. I was helping people get out of prison. Matter of fact, I ended up catching a lung condition in prison, and I filed a lawsuit in one of the hardest civil courts that you can ever win a case, which is the Western District in Grand Rapids. And lawyers was telling me that I didn't have a lawsuit. So a guy out of Grand Rapids and we got on a typewriter and pen and paper, and we filed the lawsuit ourselves, which is called deliberate indifference under the 8th Amendment. And to make a long story short, I end up winning the lawsuit.
Put your code in while you talking. Finish talking.
I end up winning the lawsuit. And I called the same lawyer. His name was Dan Manville. He was a law professor at the Michigan State University. And he would constantly tell me I didn't have a lawsuit. So I called him one day on the phone, and he answered. But he was kind of vulgar. And he got to going off on me. And he said, Davis, You don't have a case. I said, well, I survived summary disposition, summary judgment. When you survive summary judgment in a lawsuit, it means that the court has given you a trial date. It's not like the Second Amendment in a criminal case where you are afforded a trial or you can plead guilty. There's some levels and hurdles you have to overcome to get a lawsuit. And it means that you have to prove a genuine issue to convince the judge that your issue is genuine and it needs to be tried in front of a jury. So I survived that hurdle. And a lot of lawyers didn't think I could survive that hurdle because that's one of the hardest courts that you can win a lawsuit or survive summary judgment is is Western District. So make a long story short, I end up winning that case. And I was sent home 8 months later. But before I was sent home, Governor Jennifer Granholm took all tobacco paraphernalias out of the Michigan Department of Correction, where you could no longer smoke cigarettes or tobacco in the Michigan Department of Corrections.
Wow.
And that was I didn't tell her to do it. That wasn't a part of my lawsuit. But because I won, it was very remarkable that I can win. And a guy and I, out of Grand Rapids, won that case when lawyers didn't think I had a case. So that let me know how magnificent God was, right, and how my education really paid off, because I learned law and I just self-educated myself. And due to that, I created a historical moment. I won, and they took tobacco paraphernalia out of the Michigan Department of Correction. A lot of people were upset from the beginning, but I actually saved their lives as well, because tobacco is not good for our health. And so then I came home, and I saw how dilapidated and how financially bankrupt, and just how our city looked at in a horrible condition.
So I got a question.
Yes.
So when you first came home and you leaving at 17, what was the first thing that actually sent you into a culture shock when you came home?
My brother was bringing me up my street, and I saw all empty lots and burnt up basements and boarded up houses. Flint didn't look like that when I left. And then I discovered that we was considered one of the poorest cities in the nation. When I left, we was one of the highest. I think we were the second highest.
Okay.
Money, economically, in the nation. To come home to a poverty-stricken city, it was mind-boggling to me. And I was appalled that we were in the conditions that we were in. And then I tried to get out and get a job. And I couldn't get a job because of my narrative and my past conviction. And then I began to have dialogues with a lot of other people that had certain improprieties like me and suffered like me in the Michigan Department of Corrections. And they couldn't get jobs either. And so it became a problem. And I put my tubes together, and I realized why Flint, Michigan was in the conditions that we were in. Because most of the people in the city of Flint, Michigan were poverty-stricken, low, moderate, underprivileged, and or ex-convicted felons with no hope, no opportunity, and no jobs. And I wanted to know, how could I make a difference? And people were telling me that city council maybe can make a difference if you go down there and get them to address this issue. And so I went to city council meetings and didn't know I only had 2 minutes to talk. By the time I get into the gist of what my intentions were,
right,
coming to City Hall, I never can get into the gut of it. And they would tell me my 2 minutes up and I have to come back to the next city council meeting. And they did me like that about 3 or 4 times until I became a little livid, a little angry. And I said, I must be able to get my point across.
right.
And the only way I can get my point across, I have to get in.
Say that one more time.
In order to get my point across, I have to get in.
My man.
Because they're not listening to me on the outside. And so I told myself that I'm going to run for this seat. I'm going to run for this seat. And people looked at me like I was crazy because of my narrative.
So first, you had no political aspirations whatsoever.
No.
You did it out of anger and just.
I wanted
Okay.
to make a difference.
Okay.
That was my main objective. And I wanted the change makers to identify with the conditions that we are suffering from and the cause. Because there was too many people being ignored.
So you wanted the people's voices to be heard.
I wanted the people's voices to be heard because I was one of those people. And so I went home. I finally got a job. And I was cleaning apartment complexes.
So I don't want to cut you too far. Mm-hmm. But so just asking a question.
Yes, sir.
So it wasn't because it was some consortium of people or some magical white man that came and say, hey, Wantwaz Davis, you're going to run for office.
No.
And we're going to put some money behind you.
No. I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody to assist me. Because most of the people I knew thought it was far-fetched. They thought I was living in a fantasy or unrealistic fantasy. Knowing that I'm coming home from prison convicted as a murderer.
Right.
They thought it was unrealistic and they thought I was a little delusional. And so I went home and told my wife, because I had just got a job cleaning apartment complexes, working for a company called Alpine. When people move out of the apartments, they send you in to do the finished cleaning so that other tenants can move in, or you will call turnovers. And so I had just got this job because prior to this job, because I lost the money or I spent the money that I sued prison, and I was barely living off anything. And so my wife was providing for us with her unemployment checks. And to finally get a job where that I can bring money home that could assist us in paying bills and putting food in the refrigerator, I had to remember what Raphael told me when he took me on that journey to self-educate myself. In order to succeed in life, it's going to require a sacrifice. So I went home and I told my wife, in order for me to succeed in my desire to win this political seat, I have to make a sacrifice. She said, what do you mean? I said, I'm going to have to either quit my job or abort me running for a political seat. She said, so what you're saying, you're going to quit your job and we're going to go on welfare? I said, absolutely. She said, do you think you're going to win? I said, I can always win. It depends on how much energy I put into it. But I'm going to have to knock at doors by myself. And I don't have no money, so you're going to have to give me a little money to help me get flyers and, and just get out there.
Yeah, campaign.
Because I didn't do it the conventional way. The conventional way is you got a group of people knocking at doors, selling your dream, selling your objective, telling people what you can do for them. I didn't have that. So I quit my job and my family went on welfare.
So what was your wife's response to that? I know she questioned you about it.
She was appalled.
So.
She was appalled, but she was my greatest fan. And she knew that I was very ambitious and determined in anything that I put my mind to. And most importantly, she understood that I had a great desire to assist and aid people that couldn't assist and aid themselves.
So even though she disagreed, she believed in you.
She believed in my ambition and my determination, yes.
Well, I would like to give her a shout out for supporting you on that journey.
But she's my ex-wife now, but you still give her a shout out.
For that part of your life.
Absolutely. And so I knocked at doors and I sold my dream. And people would say, I'm going to vote for you. And I would say, well, there's another part about me that you don't know. And they say, it doesn't matter. I said, no, but you need to know this. And they would say, well, what is it, Mr. Davis? I said that I just served 20 years in prison for murdering a man for raping my mother. They would say, that ain't nothing. We still going to vote for you. Yeah. I would say, okay. And so by the grace and mercy of God, just the summarize it, is I won. I beat 6 people in that race. And
do you remember any of the people that you raced against? What did they have big names or big pockets?
Well, the incumbent was Bernard Lawler,
Okay.
and he was a pastor or a deacon or something in the church. And you can beat everybody in the primary, but when you get to the general election,
Yeah.
that's a hurdle, because now you're running against someone that everybody took heed into. They believed in. I didn't know anything about him being a good leader or a bad leader. I didn't know anything about that, so I can't say if he was a good leader or not. I can't say that now, and I couldn't say it then. What I knew is I had a goal, and I had an objective. And my goal and my objective was to be a voice for the least of them.
So that being said, let's fast forward a little bit since we're doing this commemoration. So you there, you get your action, you get in the seat, you deal with whatever you deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Let's take us to maybe a couple of weeks or a month right before the water crisis, or leading up to that point.
Well, leading up to that point, let me get to this part first. It's imperative that I say this part, because I'm speaking about God now. God don't intervene when we make choices.
Okay.
But he is the head of consequences when you make those choices. But because we know that God is a merciful and a just God, he always sends a warner. And so I believe that God put me in that seat to be a forewarner, to warn the government to not send us to the Flint River. In the Bible, it say God uses the foolish things to confuse the wise. So there was a lot of people confused and baffled that I won that seat. But I won that seat in 2013. And in 2014, the emergency manager came to us and told us that he was considering sending us to the Flint River. Now, mindful, this is something a lot of people don't know, because the information that has been disclosed has been half truth. And half truth is worse than a lie. It's either apple or orange. An orange cannot be an apple, and an apple cannot be an orange. And a lot of people was being told half truth or not the truth. When I got elected in office, or when I became an elected official, Flint was already led by an emergency manager, which is called a financial emergency manager, that made all the financial decisions, but allowed city council to still function, but make no financial decisions. At that particular time, there was $53 million in our general fund that controls all the services of the city. It pays for all the services. DPW, Parks and Recs, Public Safety, City Council pay, and etc. Garbage pickup, and etc. We were like $12, $13 million in debt in that general fund, because every year we do a budgetary process to make sure that the $53 million is balanced. And whenever there's a deficit at the amount 12 million or more, it's a red flag. And when the state sees that that is a huge deficit in our general fund, they have the authority to issue us an emergency manager, which is called the financial emergency manager. When Darnell Early came to us and told us that he was going to take us off the Great Lakes and place us back on the Flint River, I thought it would be haphazard to the residents in the city of Flint, Michigan, only because I heard a lot of rumors about the Flint River, and I did a research, and it told me in my research that we had been taken off the Flint River since the 60s. And I vetted and perused the articles that I read, and it never told me why. And it never told me that that issue, or whatever whatever the issue was, that it had been resolved. So it was alarming to me that he would arbitrarily move us to the Flint River without doing a due diligence to figure out if it was safe to do it. And so I begged him over and over, and I sent him emails begging him to not do it, that it would cause possibly a hazard to our health. I just presented an email to the moderators of this show. I just presented it. If you want to hand it to me, I can read it. This is an email that I sent to the emergency manager, begging him to not send us to the Flint River. I also posted this on my Facebook page the same day that I sent him the email. And this is what the letter says. I Googled it up so that people can see that I did put it on my Facebook page. And this is what it said when I Googled it up. I Googled it up out of Meta Al. You can Google it up. I think Meta Al is what brings up all of your Facebook posts. And it's an email, exact email that I sent to Darnell Early, who was our financial emergency manager, who made the decision to send us to the Flint River and was approved by Governor Rick Snyder. And it says this. It says, I found the specific Facebook post you are referring to. And then it says, on April the 16th, 2014, but it's saying I'm a woman, right? So please excuse that part. Councilwoman Wantwaz Davis posted on Facebook, I am begging you, Emergency Manager Darnell Early, do not switch to the Flint River for our drinking water. We have a chance to reconsider this decision, and I implore, which means beg, you to do so. The health and well-being of our citizens is at stake. Let's work together to find a better solution. Then it goes on the back, and this is what it says on the back. This post was made just a day before the switch to the Flint River water source was scheduled to take place. That means that this was sent a day before it was announced that we were going to the Flint River, and 9 days before the button was switched or pushed. Then it goes further. Unfortunately, his plea, or her plea, that's what they're saying, was ignored, and the switch went ahead, leading to the devastating water crisis that followed. Councilwoman Wantwaz Davis' post has since been recognized as a precedent warning, and her advocacy efforts have been acknowledged as an important contribution to the fight for justice and accountability in Flint. So let me rewind. This is the email that I sent to Darnell Early. And I sent one to Governor Rick Snyder too. This is proof. I just read it, which means that I stood for the residents and I warned them that this catastrophe was going to happen. Did I know that we was going to be poisoned by trihalohaftamine, Legionnaire, lead? No, I didn't. But I knew that it would cause a hazard to our livelihood and to our health. Now let me rewind the tape a little bit. The $12 million that Darnell Early took from the Great Lakes, because we were paying Great Lakes $12 million a year for distribution of water. His desire and goal was to take the $12 million from the Great Lakes, stop paying them, switch us to the Flint River, and put that $12 million into our general fund that would actually resolve the debt. I didn't understand that. The reason why I didn't understand that, one, Darnell Early and Rick Snyder never lived in Flint. So they don't know about the conditions of our river. Two, they could have did their due diligence to figure out that we were taking off that river since the 60s. And they needed to find out for what reason. They never disclosed that to us. Three, why would you try to resolve our deficit when that means we no longer need you, when you're getting $10,000 every 2 weeks and you were only paying us $200 every 2 weeks? So let me rewind the tape a little more back. So when I put my family on welfare to run for my seat, I knew that I would win a seat and still be on welfare. He was only paying us $200 every 2 weeks. He was getting paid $10,000. So I placed my family on welfare.
$10,000 every 2 weeks?
Darnell Early, the emergency manager, financial emergency manager, was getting $10,000 every 2 weeks.
Wow.
But he was only paying us $200.
He was getting $20,000 a month?
He was getting $20,000 a month, yes.
You standing on that?
I stand on that. Yeah, I stand on that.
So you telling me while we was getting poisoned,
he was getting $20,000.
while I was living in the city of Flint with poison water.
Allegedly,
down there early
was getting $20,000 a month. Yes, sir. So it didn't make sense that he was trying to resolve our deficit that quick and taking $20,000 a month off his table.
So
I had to think in my mind
another question,
that it was more to this.
With the position that he holds, because his position was emergency manager.
Financial
emergency manager.
Yes.
Now, who holds that seat typically? What's the equivalent, the regular seat that he sits?
That's what he was.
No, I'm saying who's doing the job that he emergently took over? Whose job did he take?
He took all of our jobs. He was the one in control. He took our democracy away from us.
I get that part. Mm-hmm. So if he was a city council person or somebody that worked for the city, what would his title be outside if it was an emergency title? Who would do the job that he did?
Well, to answer that question,
so he took over the whole infrastructure.
He took over the whole infrastructure. He took over city council and the mayor. It was just one leader who allowed us to still stay in position.
So with everybody in the municipality, did they at that time, did everybody put together make that much money that he made?
Well, city council was only making $200 every 2 weeks.
I'm saying, is anybody in the municipality making $20,000 a month?
I know the mayor makes about $125,000 a year.
So sitting as a mayor of the city of Flint, you making $100-some thousand.
The mayor makes over $100,000 a year. Yeah, city council makes about 30, 25.
So you basically saying within a half a year he made the equivalent of what the mayor would make for a year.
More
like trying to take it off his table.
Yes, and it didn't make sense to me. So that was the reason why I was vigilant and so strong on trying to get him to refrain from making that decision. And I just read the letter to you guys. So it's proof, well documented. So when people say he didn't try to stop that, I did. I just read the letter. Did I just read the letter, moderators?
Yeah.
I read the letter, right? It's the same exact letter that I wrote to Darnell Early. This is powerful information. This letter right here could have got them placed in prison. But because I was marginalized, discriminated against, and they were extremely biased towards me, only people that they subpoenaed to speak at the hearing was people who reacted towards the poison, not who was proactive. The courts didn't want to hear about the reactionary process. I was burned. I had a rash. My children suffered, and God bless their souls. You know, for all those that, suffered from that crisis, God bless you. I hope that your issues be resolved in some season, but the courts didn't want to hear that. The courts wanted to know, were they aware that this could have happened? Did they have knowledge that this could have happened? Were they neglecting the conditions? Were they negligent? They wanted to know, did they have an understanding that this could have really occurred? Well, this letter would have showed that they were warned, which means they should have or could have did their due diligence, farther beyond than just taking advice from the MDEQ. And so that was the initiative, or that was the passport that he used to take us off the Great Lakes from what he announced was to put the $12 million that we were paying the Great Lakes and put it back into the general fund. That was his reason. When to me, it was suspect. Because one, you're taking $20,000 off your table. And so after that, Darnell Early was taken off the city of Flint, Michigan as our financial emergency manager. And Jerry Ambrose came as our financial emergency manager. And Jerry Ambrose did a horrible job as Darnell Early. And Jerry Ambrose decided to hire a water engineering company called Viola. Viola was hired for $40,000 to $50,000 to tell us the quality of our water and the quality of our pipes. I did a research on Viola because by this time...
So hold on, now I got another question. So are you and have you ever been financially compensated or somebody paid you to say things or to support them or to make politics go the direction they want to?
No, they could never do that.
So you said all this stuff you're saying, nobody's motivating you to say it.
No, because really, what I'm saying is really a threat to my life. Because I'm really speaking about things that can really become detrimental to my life. Because what you guys don't know, who is listening to this, there was a council person in the 5th Ward called Fred Tucker. Fred Tucker was adamant as I was. And he was very transparent. And he had no filter on how he really wanted to support the people. From what I've heard, Fred Tucker and his wife were killed in their home. They were taken out of their home and they found their body in another state. That's the information that was told to me. So
you believe that this information that you're talking about is equivalent to the same stuff.
It's equivalent to Fred Tucker.
A lot of Flint residents believe happened to Fred Tucker and his wife.
That's what I was told by a lot of elderly people that's in their 70s and their 80s, allegedly.
Okay, so let's pick back up on this Viola.
So I did a research on Viola, and it said that the research that I read, I vetted it real strong, and through my understanding from what I've read, it's in my phone because I posted it on my Facebook page that they were sued all over the United States of America.
So this company
was sued all over the United States of America for the same reason that the emergency manager Jerry Ambrose wanted to hire them for. So what I did, I brought the research to the interview. And I gave the research to all council members. And I gave the research to Jerry Ambrose, who was our emergency manager. And I gave it to Viola. And I became extremely rambunctious. And I became extremely frustrated and irritated that this company has the audacity to come to the city of Flint, Michigan, trying to get a job for what they have been sued all over the United States of America for.
Wow.
And so none of the other city council members never stood up to assist me in stopping them from going to the Flint River, nor trying to convince Jerry Ambrose, who was our emergency manager, to not give Viola the contract, which means that I fought against Darnell Early to not switch us to the Flint River, and I fought against Jerry Ambrose to not hire this water engineering company called Viola. Viola asked me in the meeting, because they know I was exposing them. They said, Councilman Davis, why are you so angry? I said, because you shouldn't be in the meeting. We shouldn't even be in this interview with you. Because you guys have settled lawsuits and you are still engaged in lawsuits all over America, St. Louis and many other places, for which you're about to be hired to do us for. So my impression and what I'm inferring from this paperwork that I had, that I gave it to all council members, I'm not going to mention no names. You guys know who was a council member with me. You guys know. Do the numbers. Fast forward the tape. Unfortunately, Jerry Ambrose, who was the financial emergency manager then, him and Governor Rick Snyder, hired that company. Just recently, Viola just settled with the city of Flint, Michigan, a $25 million lawsuit. And the reason why they made a $25 million lawsuit, because they didn't tell us that it was lead in the pipes. That 12 children died from the quality of that water and the lead in the pipes, which I had already predicted that they was going to be a disservice to us.
So hold on a minute, hold on. So what you saying now, fast forward it, is that the city of Flint has sued this company, Viola, that you talking about, and got $12 million, and they won't even put it on our water bills? Or give some
They got $25 million.
They got $25 million.
They settled for $25 million.
So they sued this company for environmental injustice.
And
And we still around here looking at, and people still waiting on their money.
Well, the question should be, why haven't we received the $600 million
Yeah.
that we won?
Yeah.
Not the $25 million. The $25 million went to some of the children
Okay.
that was
okay.
ailed.
Okay then.
Yeah,
All right.
the $25 million went to some of the children that was ailed by
All right.
that water,
Well,
by their disinformation
So I got a question. So,
or misinformation. They both is the same. Disinformation means that we withheld the information. Misinformation means we gave you improper information.
so I just want to interject to say this. I don't know who was on watch, but I know when
I can name them if you want me to.
No.
Oh, okay.
I was at Mott, and I was taking a presidential class. It was a presidential course that they had for the water crisis. So we were able to interview, and this is archived and documented at Mott, and I was the only black and male on this particular board that we had, and it was actually a class. So we got to interview everybody that came in and out and had something to do with the Flint water crisis. And what stuck out to me the most is rest in peace Eric Mays. Eric Mays said this. He says, so look at it like this. He said it was a piece of paper, instructions on how to treat the water after, you know what I'm saying, we switched over to Flint, right? And the only step that was missing on this paper was the water corrosion step, which was it costed so much per day to pay for that.
Well, let me interject. I got what you're going, so let me interject.
Okay.
God bless Eric Mays and his soul, and condolence to his family. So I'm not casting aspersions against Councilperson Eric Mays. But we have to speak truth and we have to be transparent, because this is what this is about, transparency. May people accept it or not. Because you just alluded to that. And you just expounded and given us a synopsis of that, moderator. Eric Mays believed that we go to the Flint River, filter the water, bottle the water, and sell it like Amway. That's why he didn't help me. He used that consideration as an economical goal.
Wow.
Because Eric never helped me in neither one of those situations, the fight against Darnell Early nor Jerry Ambrose. Eric Mays came in play after we were already poisoned, and he showed up at every one of my protests.
But hold up a minute, hold up, because I want to make hold on. Let me do it. I want to make sure the content is right when we talking about Eric Mays and what I'm saying, because I didn't get to finish. So what he said, what stood out to me is that it's an instruction sheet on every step you have to take to treat this water. And Eric Mays said the only step that was missed was the corrosion control to keep the pipes from releasing lead, right?
Well,
so it was missed. That's what he said. So all I'm saying is that he's telling. So when I thought about it, I was like, well, how can you miss something that you got instructions to do?
Well,
and then that's where I was going with it.
Well, I know that's where you was going with it, but I just wanted to be transparent. May people like it or not. May people kick me in the butt. May people kick me in the back. But I was just being honest.
Understood. But when you say he came to your protest, was that to support or to?
He came to the protest to support, but not to fight against it. Because the only thing I needed was for my colleagues to apply pressure. And there's a good consideration or a great possibility that we could have changed the Constitution of the way that the government was thinking. Or at least they would.
What you mean change the Constitution?
Because their Constitution, which is a frame of thought, was to just switch us to the Flint River. Based on
the charter. You talking about the charter in the city of Flint?
No.
Oh.
The charter didn't play no part once we was under financial emergency manager.
All right.
What I'm saying is once Darnell Early desired to switch us to the Flint River, none of my colleagues applied pressure.
I want to go back to you talking about the state constitution? Or what constitution are you talking about?
Constitution, the way that you think.
Okay.
You know, when you think the thought process. Yeah,
okay.
the thought process. Yeah, the thought process.
Okay.
That's, the Constitution of the way you think. That's the thought process. None of my colleagues applied pressure. I thought that they would at least apply pressure against Viola when our other emergency manager, Jerry Ambrose, desired to hire that water engineering company. Especially when I brought the research in that this company is substandard. They're being sued all over America for the same reason that Rick Snyder and Jerry Ambrose is attending to hire them. Why hire a company that's already under litigation? Why, for the same thing that we're trying to hire them for? Why hire a company that had made a lot of settlements in other cities and states for the same reason that we about to hire them? That's a red flag. It showed that they wasn't qualified to get $40,000, $50,000 from us, that maybe we need to go to another water engineering company that may be better qualified. I gave all my colleagues the information. Nobody stood up. Everybody kept their thumb in their mouth.
So why do you think or believe that people were so anti what you were
I don't
saying
think that they
doing?
were anti. I think they didn't really understand that this was going to happen. I didn't think that they understood that this was going to happen. I didn't think that they understood that this was going to happen, because I do believe, in being just, that if they knew that this was going to happen, they probably would have applied pressure. I do believe that. But just the mere fact that all of my colleagues except Josh Freeman were older than me, and a lot of them worked in the auto industry, and they knew that it was rumors that the auto industry had polluted our water. That they, just on that assumption alone, that I feel that we should have forced them to be a little more diligent in testing the quality of our water to assure us that this is a good decision. But nobody applied pressure. I was the only one that applied pressure, unfortunately. I just read the letter that I sent to the emergency manager. If you Google my name up right now, if you Google it up, meet Wantwaz Davis, the ex-con that tried to save Flint. That's an article that Yahoo.com did, because they knew about this letter. They knew that all the time that I fought against both emergency managers, Jerry Ambrose from not hiring Viola, the water engineering company, and Darnell Early to not switch us to the Flint River. They knew that I fought 2 times to try to prevent this poison. And so they came and did an interview with me. The Steve Harvey show invited me on his show. Now I'm going to tell you about Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey had the opportunity to educate the world about the Flint water crisis, but he chose not to. I was the only one that he invited on his show. He sent his producers to my house, and they asked me would I come on the show, because they were aware that I tried to stop the poison. And when I got to the show, now this is in my book, when it come out. When I got to the show, they put makeup on my face, and then they came to me and said, Mr. Davis, there's been a change of plans. I said, what's the change of plans? They said, you're not going to sit up there with Steve Harvey. When we put a sign up, you're going to stand up. I said, that don't make no sense. They had Senator Jim Ananak up there. They had Mark Edwards sitting up there, and they had some other doctor. None of these people had anything to do with the Flint water crisis. None of them wasn't a part of our legislative body. Just nothing. They had nothing to do with our municipality or our legislative body. So I looked at my wife and I told my wife, I said, don't worry about it. I said, now they're being discriminatory towards me. I said, but when I stand up, I'm going to take this whole show over. So they came also and told my wife, can you sit somewhere else? So my wife I said, hold on. I said, we're in the audience. Why my wife, my better half, can't sit next to me when you hold that sign up? So they moved my wife and had Melissa Mays sit next to me. And I said, this is going way too far. We're in the audience. Why do my wife got to move and you want to put Melissa Mays next to me? What do she got to do with anything? What do Melissa Mays has to do with anything pertaining to this, but besides being a water advocate? Y'all, what she got to do with this? So when my wife got up and she moved, I said, I'm going to take this show over. So I told everything that I'm telling you guys right now.
Wow.
I expounded on everything. I probably spoke for probably 25 minutes. And when I got through speaking, Steve Harvey leaned in his chair and said, man, you might well have your own damn show. But when they aired it, when they aired it, it was an embarrassment to me. It showed Mark Edwards slighting me on his information.
So they done some cutting and editing.
They did a lot of cutting
and editing before
and they only had
out.
Mark Edwards pointing at me and saying some foul stuff. And that was it. It only lasted like 3-4 minutes.
Wow.
And that was it. I gave Steve Harvey the same information that I'm giving you guys right now. And that's why I say that Steve Harvey is an opportunist.
So it was all Hollywood.
It was all Hollywood. And I'm putting that, it's in my book.
Okay.
I would never have respect for him ever again in life, because that was the moment that he could have educated the world about what happened, why it happened, because why is the most intelligent question that you can ask anybody, is why. The most intelligent answer you can give is I don't know, if you don't know. But the most intelligent question you can always ask somebody is why. He could have told all that to the world, and he chose not to. People say, well, he don't got nothing to do with the editing. He got a lot to do with it, because his face is used. It's called the Steve Harvey Show. It's not called the Editor's Show. It's the Steve Harvey Show. But he didn't tell them nothing. He didn't educate the world about nothing. So he basically called me on the show to make me look like a fool. So and there's another thing I got an issue with. They just did a 10-year anniversary on the water crisis, right?
Yep.
Commemoration.
They didn't speak to me about nothing. Wow. I called Channel 12 News. I begged them. They said, Davis, it seemed like you just want to talk and be on the show. I said, no, I just want to tell the truth. Because apparently nobody is telling the truth.
Well, let me interject. Out of the Mud wanted to hear it. That's all I wanted to say. We wanted to hear it and give you opportunity to tell the truth, because it's important.
And I'm elated.
For your truth
and I'm
to
grateful.
be known.
I am extremely grateful that you guys called me on here.
And we ain't stopped nothing you said.
You have not stopped anything. And I'm extremely grateful. And you know why I'm grateful? Because God...
Your truth is your truth.
My truth is my truth.
Whether we agree or disagree.
And I got documents of my truth, right?
Yes.
I didn't just come on here and just to be talking out the side of my neck. I brought my documents. And documents can never be refuted. And so, first I would like to say that I'm extremely grateful that you guys called me on here. It lets me know, well, I've always known, is that God is magnificent.
Say that again.
And he's extremely just. And so, this gives me the opportunity to tell the world the truth. Because all of the books, all of the movies, all of the stories, all of the media outlets is all half-truth. Half-truth is worse than a lie. An apple is an apple. An apple is not an orange. And so, most of the things that you guys hear when it's pertaining to the water crisis is all coming from a reactionary process. You heard nothing about someone being proactive. And the reason why they won't speak about the proactive part, because they know it's the ex-convicted felon who went to prison and did 20 years was the only one that was being proactive. So that's where the marginalization comes in. That's where the discrimination comes in. That's where the bias comes in. And that's the reason why they're trying to wipe me under the rug and write me out of history. And even if it wasn't me, I want the truth to be told, because I've made a lot of sacrifices to win my seat. I made a lot of sacrifices to get the least of them, to have the least of them voices be heard, and bring our conditions that we suffer from today to make it better for tomorrow. Now, may people understand me, may people agree with me, but it's my truth. I never got paid. I was never in nobody's pocket. Nobody wasn't in my pocket. I did everything that I tried to do for the city of Flint, Michigan, out of my genuine and my concern initiatives. Right. It was pure, genuine, and it was sacrificial.
Okay.
And I still do it to this day. Nobody has never bought me yard signs. Nobody has ever bought flyers. None of that. None of that.
So on behalf of, Out of the Mud, and I just say on behalf of Out of the Mud, because I can't speak for everybody else, if your truths that you talked about today is really the truth, I want to thank you for trying to be a part of saving the city.
Now let me interject real quick. I showed
I'm talking about just the rest of it, just the whole agglomeration of everything. So now, moving on, what's next for Mr. Davis? You got any dreams or aspirations or anything?
My goal is to run for mayor.
Oh, yeah?
I'm running for mayor in 2026.
That's
and I will pray and I will ask everyone to support me. And the reason why I ask people to support me is because over the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years, we continue to fall through bad leadership. Why not take the initiative and take the daring chance to step outside of the conventional way, the old way, outside of the box, and put somebody in a seat that you would never thought that would make a difference for you? Why keep electing and voting for the same people who switch from seat to seat and has done nothing for us? And apparently, if they have not done anything for us in this current day or previous time, what makes us believe that they're going to do something for us if they run for office again? That's what you have to think about. Why would I allow a babysitter to babysit my children and she never fed my children when I was at work? But 2 years come back when I'm in dire need of a babysitter that I reach back and hire that babysitter again when nothing comes out of nothing. We have to start thinking in a better way, in a better light, if we desire to be in a better condition than what we are today. See, the conditions we live in today didn't happen overnight. Every elected official that is in office right now is accountable to what we're suffering from today. From state reps, senators, commissioners, councils, mayors, everybody that has been in office for the last 20, 30, 40 years is accountable, because this didn't happen overnight. This happened over years of wear and tear. It's like water. Water is weight. If you keep having water leak through your house, eventually the weight of that water is going to break your house down and it's going to mess your foundation up. Why? Because that water was never addressed. That kept leaking through your house in your basement. Water is weight. The conditions that we're going through is a trickle effect from bad leadership that became weight. And it tore us down. From the second highest economically, which means the second highest in money in the nation,
real quick,
to a poor city today.
Question. Now, I'm with you on a lot of this stuff. I want to go back to the commemoration event itself.
Yes, sir.
Now, I volunteered and was involved in some things. And to my understanding and how I saw it, unless it was something behind the scenes going on, everybody was invited. There was nobody not invited to participate in that. And unless you have a different narrative or you can express something else.
I get what you're saying. I do understand what you're saying, George.
So
the part that I'm talking about is when the media, the media controls the narrative.
But the media came and
the media never called me. I even called the media myself. And I asked them, let me say this. They interviewed Dane Walling. Dane Walling pushed the button. They interviewed Mayor Sheldon Neely. I'm talking about those that they interviewed.
You talking about in the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, the ones they interviewed in the last couple of weeks. Because that's the part that people look at the most. The elected officials that they interviewed, they invited Dane Walling. They did an interview with him, who pushed the button.
So you're saying what you saw as far as the optics is who they went out for. But let me say this, because I did not see you at any of the events dealing with the commemoration. If you would have come, then you would have had the opportunity to speak to the media that did show up there, because they did show up and they were at.
Well, what I did do, George, what I did do is I went to Channel 25 News. They interviewed me, but they never showed it. They never showed it. My goal was to contact the media myself and let's do an interview with me like the interview I'm doing now.
Okay.
They wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it. That's the point I'm alluding to. Not showing up at the meetings. My point is I gave them the opportunity to interview me so that the world can be educated in the manner that I'm educating them now. And they wouldn't do it, and they still haven't done it.
Well, I wanted to read a comment I'm looking on here right now. Ms. Freeman said, they interviewed many residents. No one special, just whomever wanted to speak to them. You wouldn't even have to ask if you would have came. Oh, I added the part, if you would have came. She put the period, so. That's basically, so like George was saying, the cameras was there, and like George said, I didn't see you at none of them. Me and George was out there.
Even if they interview you, don't mean they're gonna show it.
Nah, you got a point of, yeah.
Even if they interview you, they're not gonna show it. My thing was, I wanted to put them in a position. I was playing chess. I wanted to put them in a position to give me the ability that they was giving Mayor Walling, Karen Weaver, and Mayor Sheldon Neely. Because if they put me in that box, then they got to give me the same ample amount of time that they gave them, and they would not be in remiss. They would have to show that interview. They interviewed a lot of people at those.
So go over again why you believe they did not include you or give you the same time
because
that they gave
wanted
the other.
Because they wanted to control the narrative.
And what narrative is that?
They don't want people to know the truth.
So what we have here is Wantwaz Davis speaks on being ignored while trying to save the city of Flint, marginalized, discriminated against, and being written out of history. So this is part of what you're saying about
absolutely.
Being written
That is the part. That is the part. That is the part. The only thing, even when you walk in the Sloan Museum, right? I went in the Sloan Museum, and they got a part in the Sloan Museum where they talk about the Flint water crisis, right? They got Darnell Early, the emergency manager that made the switch. They got Jerry Ambrose, the other emergency manager. They got Rick Snyder. They got Leanne Walters. But they got everybody in there on the reactionary and those that cause it, but they have nothing that's proactive. There has to be a balance, but there is no balance.
What's the thing with Leanne Walters?
Because I guess that her children had rashes and she showed dirty water, and they trying to say that she made the signal that the water was bad. See, that's misinformation. That's misinformation.
So how, in your opinion,
it's just like Dr. Mona Hanna, right? They said that she saved Flint. Well, if they would have listened to this, then we wouldn't have knew nothing about the Dr. Mona Hanna. If they would have listened to me asking them to not hire Viola, then we wouldn't have knew nothing about the Dr. Mona Hanna. So they are speaking about reactionary. Wow. Nobody's speaking about proactive.
Oh, well, I'm saying whatever you did and whatever she did, everybody played a part in bringing it to the light. So,
but that was the reactionary process.
Yeah.
But there was someone trying to tell you to not do it. Because if I had children,
I get what you're saying. So let me put and these people, they did have a reaction to the
all
thing.
reactionary.
And I don't know if there was something that some of these folks were doing beforehand to try. Yours was the most public because you were sitting in a city seat.
That's right.
To be publicly say, hey, everybody can see that I'm saying no. Everybody can see that I'm against this and we should not do this.
No, not just that. Let me give you what I mean. What I mean is this. 12 children died from this, right? And it could be more.
That we know of.
So it could be more. 300 years from the day when
one is too many.
Let me say that one is too many. 300 years from the day when we're all gone, there's going to be questions that can't be answered. And one of the questions that won't be answered is, you mean everybody agreed to this? You mean there was no one that stood up for those children that died? Who will be able to answer that question?
Well, there were people that weren't in the direct public that were saying things months beforehand, even before the switch, like Pastor Bobby, Mission of Hope, and it was another.
Nobody ever came to the meeting and said that.
Well, these were people in the community. These were people that didn't, they didn't have the same platform.
But this is the thing I'm saying is this. Let me get back.
I'm not taking nothing away from you because I agree with you.
Absolutely.
That it's BS. That
it is BS.
It's not being recognized.
It is BS.
You said before this problem even happened.
That's right.
Let's
and people are going to ask that question 300 years from today, and say, "You mean there was nobody in office that said no, that stood up for us? There was nobody in office."
Let me say it like this. So I think because your energy is a very direct energy. And some people can take what I would consider your confidence as conceitedness. And that's not, in situations like this, it doesn't matter what people look at or how they feel. If the information and the objection against something is right, then just stand on that. Don't stand on because you may or may not like a person's the way they do stuff. Because if what he said is going to create you from being poisoned, then you should have listened.
Well, that's right. And then the point, that's right.
So,
and then not only that, Mayor Weaver just gave an interview, and she said local officials are accountable too.
Yeah. So, Mr. Davis.
And that was wrong because we were not accountable because we had no decisions. And then you got some people think that we voted for it. You got some people say city council voted for that, and that's not true. It's just like this, right? Let me give you this point because you're right, George, and thank you for saying that.
We got a lot of comments too.
And let me say this: you got some people when you're not.
I'm gonna say we got a lot of comments. A lot of people commenting. So I know James is gonna.
When you don't have an understanding of government, your misconception takes control. You got some people think that elected officials downtown stealing money. Like I can just go in there, open up a safe, grab money, put it in my pocket, and walk out the door. The only money we see is always on paper. We don't see money. We see the $53 million in our general fund. When we're doing the budget, you shift it around on paper. There is no way possible that we can take money and put it in our pocket and walk out the door. But you have a lot of people that's miseducated. They believe that. They stealing the money. They stealing the money. No, money can be misappropriated.
Okay.
But it can't be stole.
Okay, so Mr. Davis, great interview. Fire. What I would like to do now, getting ready to close out in a minute. What do you want to say to the people as far as inspirational? Like you said, you're running for mayor, so that's great.
I am running for mayor.
Okay, so now what do you
Let me
want to
tell you
leave
my
the people
goal.
with?
My goal is, when I do become mayor, is I want to bring our economy back up. I want to create jobs for the underprivileged, the low moderate, the poverty-stricken, the ex-convicted felons. I want to create jobs. I want to bring our economy back the way it was in the 80s and the 70s. General Motors may be gone, but you can reduplicate or exchange that with factories, manufacturing jobs, the same way you did with General Motors, where that the children that are growing up today that's not educated. Education and jobs go hand in hand. Because when you have a child that grows up in a financially distressed home, they listen to their mothers and their father arguing over bills because there is no income in the house. Then the child said, you sending me to school every day, telling me I'm going to have a bright future. But how am I going to have a bright future that once I graduate, there's no opportunity for me to have?
Right.
So it sounds like a paradox. It sounds like a contradiction. You're sending me to school, you're telling me to go to school, but once I get my degree and my diploma, what do I have to do next? Leave Flint and go help build somebody else's economy? Right. That's the only thing you can do. But why do we have to keep throwing our children on another city or another state when we're trying to build our economy here?
Hold on, don't mean to hurt you right there. We got some great questions so we want you to interact with the people here. So we got, first off, okay, so John Snow told me to tell you what's up.
Hey, John.
And then we got a question here that says, how do you feel about the emergency management? Sum that up. How do you feel about emergency management? You can sum that up.
I don't like emergency management. It strips us of our democracy. It takes us from not being accountable for doing the things that our residents vote us in the office to do. They take control. Prime example, they switched us to the Flint River. Prime example, they hired that company Viola. Okay. Maybe if I'd have been arguing with city council, maybe we'd have reconsidered that.
Okay, we got another question. Is the water safe in your opinion now?
I would tell people no.
Okay. And someone else says, what's your long-term goals?
My long-term goal is... My long-term goals, not mindful, I own a company. And I started my company off of $50. And I made it a lucrative company. But my goals as a politician is to help the least of them. Just like I needed help. I go back to the suffering and the struggles that I was doing, because that was my goal in getting in politics, was to be a voice for the voiceless and help those that was jobless to get jobs. So my goal as a politician is to flood Flint with factories. If I was the mayor now, I'd be traveling all over the country, bringing manufacturers to Flint, because we're an industrial city. We're an auto city. Our infrastructure is designed for that. So I will go across the country and ask manufacturers to come bring factories here.
Okay, so now that ties into a question that Ms. Freeman got on here. She said, and she put this in before you actually said that, which is real interesting. She said, how do you feel about mega sites popping up? Huge companies like factories that can contaminate our city air and water.
Well, what I would also do if I was the mayor, I would get in alignment with the House, the Senate, and we will always do tests. And we would try to bring in factories that wouldn't taint our air. And if it would or has the possibility to taint it, we have to do our due diligence to try to prevent it. And we have to figure out what type of plant that would be. I wouldn't know what type of plant that would be. I would hire engineers to educate us and give us that information. That's a part of me doing my due diligence. There's a lot of work that would have to be done to try to prevent it. That type of work, I've not been in that lane yet. I'm not in that lane yet. But my main objective and goal is to address the issues that 70% or more of our residents are going through. 70% or more of our residents are underprivileged, low moderate, poverty-stricken, and ex-convicted felons. My goal is to address their needs. Once I can address their needs, then we have a better city. See, what people think is public safety resolves our problems. Public safety reacts towards the problems. You can hire 1,000,001 police officers and put them all on the streets. They react to crime. They don't resolve crime. They react to crime. But how do we resolve and how do we prevent crime? By bringing hope, opportunity, jobs, bring morals and values back into our system. Right now we have low morals, no values, no jobs.
Okay, we got another great question. And this probably we're gonna finish it up with this. Do you think you have the ability to get our pipes fixed completely, all capital?
Now let me say this. Let me say this. No casting aspersions against Mayor Karen Weaver. But when and no aspersions, please, no pun intended. I just want to tell you what I would have done had I been the mayor. At that particular time, we had the whole world looking at us. And the whole world wanted to know, what can we do for you to make it better for you? What I would have done first, since Obama came to Flint and drunk that fake water, which was Sprite or crystal water, I would have pulled them in the back room and say, President Obama, I understood that game you just played. That's nevertheless neither here nor there. But what I need you to do is to get with the House and the Senate, ask them to submit a bill. I went to Dan Kildee. Dan Kildee submit a bill, send the bill to President Obama that we don't have to pay water bills for the next 10, 20 years, and fix our infrastructure off the federal government general fund, the federal and the state general fund, where that we had to spend no money out of our general fund to fix our pipes because the state created this condition and the federal government is over the state. So we make the state and the federal government accountable before our problems that was imposed upon us.
Okay, so that's what's up, but I think the question is that, since Neely's got to leave, he's terming out, you're going to run in 26. Mm-hmm. What do you believe you can do now? What is the ideas when you get in there to be able, not what nobody else did, what you would do? Once you get in there, what's going to be the strategy to get all these pipes in these houses?
Is do exactly what I said. Get with the President of the United States of America and tell him we need help and get the House and the Senate to submit a bill. 1, to pay our water bills, and 2, let's expedite fixing these pipes off the federal government general fund. Let's expedite it. It's been going too long. It's been going too slow. And we shouldn't be paying for water that we don't trust.
Question, what are your thoughts about the ARPA funds?
The ARPA funds, we got $40 million left. It was $94.7 million. None of that money really came to the residents. With that $40 million that is left over right now, I would give it to the people. And the way I would give it to the people is I would pay people property taxes. I would pay people property taxes because most of the people property taxes right now is from water bills that they couldn't address. So fixing roofs, that's not a good idea. We got to make sure that they keep a house where they have a roof. And most of homes right now in the city of Flint, Michigan are either about to be foreclosed or they under foreclosure. So we need to make sure we keep their shelter first. So what I would do with that $40 million, I would spend that last $40 million on paying people property taxes. Because most of the property taxes is water bills that they couldn't afford or they couldn't pay because they had to address other issues. And really, most importantly, why pay a water bill when you can't even trust yourself to drink it? That's the way you give the money back to the people, is to pay their property taxes. That $94.7 million should have been more to the people than what they spent the money on. They spent the money on fixing street lights, public safety. People create crime in the daylight.
Okay, so everybody that's paying attention, everybody that's watching this fire interview, Out of the Mud Media on Facebook, you can subscribe when you get ready to. You asked it. You asked the last question.
So no, look. So we had some other comments. Will you put a moratorium back on the water bills?
Yes.
Will you get water pods back in the city?
Say that again?
Would you get water pods back in the city?
Well, yes, I would get water pods in the city, but see, that's only a Band-Aid. My goal is to take the Band-Aids away. See, let me say this, please. Let me say this part. When our basement was filled with cases of water, but when we came upstairs, we had a shut-off and still a water bill. That issue needs to be addressed immediately. No more water bills, no more shut-off notices, and pay the property tax.
So explain to people what a moratorium is on the water bills.
Is to stop it. A stop hold. It's a stop hold.
What does that mean?
That means to not pay water bills at all.
Okay. I mean, some people don't know what a moratorium is.
That's what it means, to stop paying water bills.
And then you saying with the water pods, you said that's not necessarily
It is necessary, but I still say it's a Band-Aid.
Okay.
It's a Band-Aid. But when you get the federal government involved, I promise you, they'll be in here fixing fights 24/7 a day. 24/7 hours. Because they want to get us off their general fund as fast as they can. Okay. That's how you play chess, not checkers. Thus far, we've been playing checkers. We got to play chess. And the way you play chess is you make those accountable, liable. And we have not made the state liable and accountable. We have not made the federal government liable and accountable. We need to make both of those legislative bodies accountable to what has happened in the city of Flint, Michigan. We need to make them accountable. And we should have made them accountable yesterday.
We got somebody saying speed bumps.
Speed bumps? Speed bumps are great. Yes, they are great. We need that. But what we need also is we need our streets fixed in the urban communities. On the north end, the east, the west, and the south. They fix the streets downtown. But what about our streets? What about our streets that's been neglected in our neighborhoods, in our communities? What about those streets? Bump holes and potholes and people messing up their front end of their cars, then got to run to the city and try to force the city to pay for your busted tires, your busted front end. All of these things has been neglected and ignored. Really, the poverty-stricken people issues has been ignored, and it takes a real leader that's been through what we've been through to stand up and address these issues. People got to stop voting for people that has never suffered.
I got you. So my question is outside the water. So we got a lot of investment going on in the city right now. We got a lot of apartment complexes going up. We have a lot of renovations of buildings and things of that nature. What would be your direction on making sure that all of the new build and the new construction and the new jobs that are generated from this is equitable to not just people from outside the county being able to come into the county and to the city to do the work, but actual contractors and actual people that need the jobs actually get those jobs?
Well, you know, I convinced the Chambers of Commerce when they got the 5-year contract to control all economic and development, and that contract was over with in 2020, to bring manufacturings back to Flint. They done that thus far. They brought Lear. I didn't actually know it was going to be Lear, but I changed the way that they was thinking to bring factories back to Flint, and they started doing it. What I would do when I bring the factories that I want here, we would sit at the table and we would have the barter system. I want at least 80% of the people that's living in Flint working in these factories. One, we have a weak tax base. When people working in these factories that live in Flint, that taxes goes back into our general fund and it pays for the services. They building all these apartment complexes, these subsidized complexes, but people don't have jobs that live in these complexes. What they're doing, they appeasing the poor people to keep them poor. They keep them poor.
Okay.
Yeah, you want to address my poorness, but the way you addressing my poorness and my poverty is you put me in subsidized homes, but at the end of the day, I still got to pay light bills, I still got to pay water bills, I still have to have groceries in my house. You are assisting my poverty, but you're not assisting my problem.
Okay, and my last question would be, so based on some conversation we had, it's like the last voter rate was like at 13%, was it?
Yeah,
the
last night.
So only 13% of the population voted for the elections in the last elections, and out of the 100% that could have. What is your strategy or thought process in order to increase those voting numbers?
Is to let them know that I suffer just like them. This is the problem that we go through when you have elected officials. Elected officials that need to be in these offices are people that walked in the same shoes of the people that they desire to help. Unfortunately, the people that really want the help say, why go vote when they don't address my needs? This is why I feel that God is merciful and just by putting me in the political arena, because I've walked in every shoe. I cannot ignore what we go through because I've been in every shoe that walks the earth. In every shoe. Drug dealer, poverty, underprivileged, low moderate, ex-convicted felon. There's not one shoe that walks in the city of Flint, Michigan that I've never walked in. That's why I say it's imperative that people take the urgent and the need, the urgency and the need to go to the polls and give me the opportunity. We've given everybody else the opportunity. They've dropped the ball on us. Why not give the opportunity to somebody that has walked in your shoes?
So I got a question. What would be your idea and your strategy to try to engage our millennials to vote for you in the upcoming election in 2026?
You know what I do already?
What?
Because I'm proactive. I walks with them. I talks to them. I engage with them.
You know what I think would really get them?
What's that?
You be featured on Rio OG, one of his rap songs, and you go in with a 16 bar, and I think you got it.
Well, you know I know Louis Ray. You know I know them. I know them. I know Cliff. I know these guys. I'm in the Fifth Ward. I'm in the Fifth Ward. Fifth Ward to me.
I think the millennials are going crazy.
And people may not understand this, and they may say, "Oh no, the Fifth Ward." But Fifth Ward is the body. It's the nucleus of Flint, Michigan. It's always been the nucleus. Because we in the Fifth Ward right now. Fifth Ward, they changing the district in 2026. But the Fifth Ward goes originally from Rankin all the way to 12th Street Store on, the liquor store. It goes from DuPont all the way to the east side. That's the body of the Fifth Ward. But my thing is, the way that I get the millennial, this new millennial, is you have to walk with them. You have to talk to them. See, Jesus was good because Jesus walked with the scammers. Jesus walked with the prostitutes. Jesus walked with all those that had bad, negative improprieties. You can't estrange yourself from them. You can't ignore them. You can't walk above them. You can't walk from them. You have to walk with them. And that's what I do. I walk with them.
Now, I know I said that was going to be my last question, but I ain't going to say that again. But another question is, since we're addressing the youth, we have a huge issue with them being retaliatory and having the issue of killing each other when it comes to problems. How would you address those things?
Let me tell you this.
The issues with
when I grew up in the 80s and the 70s. See, what people don't realize is this. When your economy is good, crime goes down. When your economy is bad, you see what you see today. When I grew up in the 80s, you can count killers on one hand. When you saw him, you knew he was a killer. You knew he was. Everybody was making money. Although everybody wanted to be drug dealers, everybody's parents was working in General Motors, truck and bus, Fisher Body, AC Spark Plug, Chevy in the hole. You didn't see Flint the way you see it now. We became the way we are now because we lack morals. Values are gone. Hope is gone. Opportunity no longer exists. And most importantly, jobs are scarce. And they're not afforded to the least of them. When you answer and address all of those issues, crime goes low. Economy gets better, crime goes low. It's not police. It's not public safety. Police address crime. They don't resolve it. People, only fear that people have of police is getting caught. It's getting caught. But when you apply some opportunity, some hope, it creates values and morals, and most importantly, when you show them there's an outlet. Right now, there is no outlet for positive behavior. There's no option. It's only one option, and that's going left. There is no right. There is no right. We have to have an option there. We have to have an option. Either I'm going to go left, I'm going to go right. When I grew up, there was an option. A lot of us choose to sell dope, but there was money. A lot of us worked. There was money. At the end of the day, there was opportunity. There is no opportunity now. So everybody initially goes left. We have to create a right. When you create a right, people begin to do what? The right thing. When you only got a left, what they do? The negative thing. People is too caught up on public safety. And I'm going to say this and I'm going to conclude it. People are not scared of police. They scared of getting caught.
My man. We really appreciate the interview, man.
Most definitely.
This was fire, man. This was
Most
real
definitely.
fire. And there's more fire to come from Out of the Mud.
Yeah.
And so y'all get y'all phones and type it in, Out of the Mud.
And share. And
share.
like. Go to
Because
Out of the
keep
Mud.
doing good, informative, positive content, that's what Out of the Mud is going to get.
And Out of the Mud is on every platform. We haven't put out stuff on those platforms, but like them and follow, and we'll start. Because a lot of the stuff is going to start going specifically to Out of the Mud and Out of the Mud INC under Facebook. But I want to say this: any other political person or legal person or anybody that wants to share their story, their version of their truth, you're going to be welcome to do the same thing. We're not going to bust you upside the head and try to trap you. Your truth is your truth.
And thank you.
Now, what the people say, we can't control that.
That's right.
Yeah.
What the people believe and think, we can't control that. But we're going to give you the opportunity to speak your truth. I'm talking whoever it is, whoever, Tim Herman, Ridgeway White, Mayor Neely, all of y'all. Y'all all welcome. Because ain't nobody intimidated up here, and ain't nobody going to treat you unfair up here.
My homies went to the military. In college, I went to the streets. Well, my man, I came from the streets and went to college. So I'm street too. Let's get that straight.
I came from the streets too.
And I'm a felon, ex-felon, stand up, like you said. So we standing up. And we out. This has been a broadcast produced by Out of the Mud.
And
we like to thank y'all. Thank you.
Thank